The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. And it is equally a pleasure to be joined by my co-host this week, Katie Zaccardi. Hi, Katie.
Hello, hello.
Oh, it's so good to see you. It has been entirely too long, Katie Zaccardi. Where have you been?
I know what's funny is it's been like a month or two, but it feels like so long. It feels like way too long. I have just been at the pool and in my office working. And that's a pretty good life. I don't know. I'm living it up this summer, I think.
That's the way to do it. I'm jealous. Whereas you are hanging out at the pool, sounds like you're living your best life. I'm a little sleep deprived. And
oh, why?
I'm going to tell you why. It is entirely and completely Olympics driven. This happens to me every time the Olympics are on the other side of the world and all the games are happening, like the best games are all happening at like 5:15 in the morning. And so I'm getting up at weird hours. I'm rooting, like, you know, my wife's trying to figure out why I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning to watch women's rugby because I want to root for all the games. I want to root for the US. I'm so into the Olympics, and it is screwing up my sleep schedule so bad because I don't want to wait for the tape delayed stuff in prime time, right? Because
that's
Twitter
really funny.
Spoils everything.
Yeah.
You know who wins or loses by, you know, the time you wake up. So when you show the taped delayed stuff at night, it's completely pointless.
I have to admit, I haven't been watching the Olympics like at all. Is that bad? I know. Can you believe it? I feel like I remember the last couple Olympics so vividly, and I feel like this one, I'm just like not hyped about it. And you're so right. We wake up and the results are in anyway that I'm just like, I'll just find out what happened, I guess. So I think you're doing it right though. You're really like living it up. You're getting the real time emotions and results, whereas I'm doing like the not so fun version.
I don't think I'm living it up. The bags under my eyes have bags under their eyes because I'm so tired. Is it COVID driven for you? Is the fact that the Summer Olympics were a year late, that there's not screaming fans in the stands, is that sort of affecting your experience, not getting you as excited?
I think so, yeah. It's just like, it feels like it's not as much of a spectacle this year. And I also just feel like the people around me aren't really talking about it that much, which I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but I just haven't been that interested. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, Zach Sloan, a frequent Break the Business co-host, we love him around here, just writes in, Twitter ruins many things, but this is one of the worst examples. Yes, yeah. Twitter absolutely ruins on the other side of the world Olympic Games. I mean, one of the most famous moments in Olympic history that people always talk about is that 1980 Miracle on Ice, right? Where the U.S. beat the Soviet Union in hockey and was this really big deal. What a lot of people don't know about that match was that it actually happened on tape delay. It wasn't live when most Americans watched it, which means if it had happened in the era of Twitter, nobody would have cared. It'd be like, oh yeah, I heard about this on Twitter, you know, when I woke up this morning. Don't care. So yeah, Twitter messes with other side of the world Olympics quite a bit. But here's something about the Olympics that I think you can get excited about. For the first time, I think we have like a really good mixture of TikTok and Olympics.
Yes.
And TikTok Olympics is pretty great. I've fallen in love with Ilona Maher of the women's rugby team.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just living through her. I'm like, I don't need to watch. I'm just going to watch her TikToks. I'm going to watch the fun TikTok recaps. And that's enough for me. But she's hilarious, and she has been doing such a good job of really creating that hype that I feel like is missing in a lot of other areas and in a lot of other ways.
Ilona Maher and Sunisa Lee are suffering injuries from carrying this Olympics on their TikTok profiles single-handedly and making this even remotely a watchable experience. But even if you're not fully watching the Olympics, Katie, even if you're having trouble getting into it, I imagine you've been following everything that's going on with Simone Biles and the gymnastics competitions and her having to step out from some of the competitions. And the moment I heard about this, when she first announced that she was dropping out of the team competition, or is the all around, that she wasn't going to compete in because she was having the twisties. You know, when she was up in the air, her brain was having trouble telling her where she was in the air, which is incredibly dangerous for gymnastics. And so she had dropped out of all of the finals competitions that she was in, except for the balance beam, which she did at the end, and she got a bronze. Yay for Simone. And my first thought, no kidding, Katie, when all of this was going down was, I got to have Katie on the show, because she's the person that I talk to about mental health issues, about self-care, and my mind, as it often does, went right to creators having this same issue. So before we get into any of that, I just want to hear some of your initial thoughts on everything that happened with Simone Biles. What did it make you think about?
My initial thoughts were good for her. She is so intelligent and emotionally intelligent. And the fact that she had the guts to do what she needed to do is just so impressive and inspiring. And then my secondary thoughts are, unfortunately, we have a large population of people in this country and beyond who still do not see the importance of mental health, and were really, I would say, giving her a hard time, but the truth is she's not even seeing their responses. So really just like trash talking on social media about her choice and not understanding how crucial this is. And that makes me mad. To put it lightly.
The keyboard warriors are having a field day. Suddenly, all these people, I had no idea, Katie, that we had all of these people with very strong opinions about gymnastics. I can only imagine that they talk about gymnastics all 4 years, right? It isn't just Olympics. Right? The way they talk about it, they're all experts. And they,
definitely.
And their points of view should definitely be adhered to. They know every bit about this stuff because their opinions seem so strong. And they all come out and they all seem to have every inclination to want to tell Simone Biles, who is better at what she does than what any of us are at what we do best, how to be an Olympic champion, how to be the GOAT. And among all of it, the thing that impresses me the most about Simone and what she went through, Katie, is the amount of poise she had through all of this. Because I've certainly had times in my life where I've had breakdowns where I couldn't get something done that I wanted to get done because of a mental block that I was having, you know, whether it was being depressed or just going through any sort of other mental malady. And in that moment, I could not get in front of a bunch of people and talk about what I was going through with the poise that she did. And so when she got up in those press conferences and was just making it very clear what was going on with her, how she was feeling, how she was going to move forward, and the poise that she had.
She seemed so confident, right? It was like, incredible. She wasn't like, oh, I'm so disappointed that this happened. She was like, I made the right decision, and I'm here to tell you I made the right decision. I have no regrets about it. That's how she came off, at least.
She was more confident in what could be argued was one of her lowest points as an elite gymnast than I've ever been in my highest amount of confidence in the legal profession. Like I want the Simone Biles poise and confidence in her darkest moments. That's so incredible to me. And that's worth celebrating. And I've heard a lot of talk from these keyboard warriors that you spoke about on Twitter, Katie, who are speaking, talking about how, to the extent that people are celebrating Simone Biles for speaking out about her mental health, you're getting a lot of, if this were a male athlete, if this were Tom Brady doing the same thing, we wouldn't be celebrating Tom Brady. We would say, you got to be tough, Tom Brady. Like, we're handling her with kid gloves because she's a female athlete. And my response to that is the problem how we're treating the female athletes here or how we're treating the male athletes here?
Exactly. Just because there's some misogyny going on doesn't mean that it's right. This is the bottom line. Some people understand that the real win here is that she stepped out of it to preserve her mental health, and we understand that's the real win. But some people have it confused, and they seem to think that if she really was a winner and that she would have pushed through. And the bottom line is that this is where we go wrong as a society. This is something that's prevalent in the music industry too. But the truth of the matter is that she is stronger. She is better. She is smarter. She is all of these things because she stepped down. She's not swimming laps in a pool and then swimming too slow and losing. She's not, doing some like basic sport. Well, let me backtrack there because I'm no Olympian. So none of this is really basic, but, but she's not doing something where like, oh, if she loses, it's just because she went too slow or because she just didn't play her best. If she messes up, she could end up gravely injured and sabotage the rest of her career. And to be able to say, I know what's on the line for me. I know how big this could be for me. And I also know that I am smart enough to recognize I am not in it. I am not doing my best and I'm not going to risk getting injured and basically weighing like, do I risk a medal or do I risk potentially my whole career if I get injured doing this? Because we know when you're not in the brain space to be performing well physically, there's consequences, right? Like it's not just about like showing up to school in your classroom and just sitting there silently in the back. Like these are high stakes things. And so for her to do that with such grace and confidence, like you were saying, that is the huge win. And I just hope that we can move in a direction as a society where we see that more. Because at the end of the day, too, this is her job. Like you wouldn't want a pilot showing up feeling really, really sick to go fly your plane, right? Now, while she's in it for herself, you could say she doesn't want to show up to work not doing her best because it could end really badly for her. And I think in this country, and again, in the music industry, a lot of people place work above everything. Like, well, if you didn't see the job through, or if you didn't do this, and if you're not hustling day and night, then you don't care enough, you don't want it enough, you're weak, blah, blah, blah. And that grinds my gears. And in the music industry in particular, I think it's so damaging to artists because it's the same exact mindset that leads to all this burnout and artists feeling really unwell mentally because they just feel like they have to constantly be going, pushing. And if they don't take a break or they don't take care of themselves, or if they do take a break and they do take care of themselves, then they don't want it enough. And that's just, it's all BS if you ask me.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought this to creators because that's definitely where I wanted to take it. And Lauren, by the way, our producer Lauren, I know you. I see you there in the window. I feel like you have things you want to say. If you ever want to pop on and give us and join this discussion, love to have you. I should mention we got so excited talking about the Olympics, I forgot to mention our guest after the break, Cheryl B. Engelhardt, one of my favorite people in the music industry, true friend of the podcast. Got a new album out, A Seeker Slumber, currently number 3 on the Amazon New Age chart. She's going to be joining us to talk all about that. She's really, really great, Katie. I don't know if you've ever met Cheryl, but happy to connect two awesome people together.
Yes, I'm excited to have her on.
So talking about now, bringing it to creators. Here's why this made me think of creators. You've probably heard all these same statistics too, Katie, since a big part of your work is, working with artists who are going through mental health type difficulties and issues. This is a population that is at particularly high risk for mental health issues. Artists are 10 times more likely to suffer from depression, 4 times as likely to have suicidal thoughts, and 73% of independent musicians, according to Rolling Stone, have battled with stress, anxiety, and depression. So my fear is that when creators see people on Twitter diminishing Simone Biles, telling her that what you're going through isn't real, you just have to tough it out. You just have to work through it. It's not a mental illness. It's not any kind of mental issue. It's just you being unwilling to do what you need to do to win. I'm afraid that creators see those messages and they see it as them not having permission to feel pain, them not having permission to go through some of these same issues because they're afraid that if they're public about these problems, they're going to suffer similar retribution from the keyboard warriors. Yeah. And that's the part that really worries me because of how high risk the creators that you and I care about are from feeling these things.
Yeah. And obviously this goes beyond the music industry, but I think you're right that musicians seem to be more prone to this. I mean, the statistics literally say so. And it is really worrisome. I think that what's interesting too, so I'm actually not on Twitter, I'm more so on TikTok, but on TikTok, I was seeing less videos of people actually talking about how bad it was. Like the videos I was seeing would be people positively talking about it, not saying that she was weak or whatever. But the comments would be the damaging thing. And I feel like it's one of those things where these are the same people who will talk the talk. You know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. They'll be like, oh, you know, look out for your friends, treat people with kindness, all this stuff. But then at the end of the day, they're also spewing these really, really damaging things and these damaging comments. And I just encourage everyone, like, I don't really know what the solution is right now, besides do your part to shut up. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And think about the actual people in your life who might be struggling with mental health issues before you go and slam someone and call them weak or whatever other names you have. Because one day it could be you. Like, quite frankly, one day you could go through something and you could be feeling like you need support and like your mental health is not good. And you definitely don't want people telling you that what you're going through is fake, not real, not serious enough, should have pushed through, just get over it, blah, blah, blah. Because trust me, it doesn't work like that. And you might not get it now, but like have a little bit of empathy and compassion for what other people are going through. And again, if you don't get it and you have nothing to say, just don't say anything at all. I personally just block and delete. Like on my social media, I'm like, if you're gonna say this, goodbye. Like, I'm silencing you. Sorry. So yeah, I'm like, curate your feeds. As creators, protect yourself. Like, if you see that, get off social media, block. Again, make sure that you're doing your best to avoid that, and know that there are resources out there and communities out there who will support you, and you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not, what you're feeling is real. And I think that's all we can do, is just make sure that everyone feels as supported as possible, which, you know, that's been like my whole mojo. So
Katie, I imagine in the course of the work that you do, whether it's working with artists one-on-one or just the artists that you come across in your music career, you've probably met an artist or two who has gotten to the point where whether it's depression or whether it's some other mental health issue, it's gotten to the point where it is become so overwhelming for them that they are literally incapable of creating, of doing their day-to-day thing that they do best. In much in the same way that Simone Biles, it was so overwhelming for her, she could not do what she does best safely. What do you tell an artist in a situation like that? How do you even begin to work a creator through that so that they can eventually get to a better position of mental health and hopefully even get to a position where they can create effectively again?
That's such a good question. And I think that it really comes down to getting closer to figuring out what's going on. And sometimes with mental health issues, it's not like every single day something's going on that's causing it, but rather maybe something that triggered it, or maybe something that you live with day to day and just have to manage. But I'll give the example, like, I'm not a therapist. So for me, if I'm working with clients, I would want to make sure, is this something that's like trauma related or something that they really need to seek therapist support to work through? But a lot of what I see is having to do with overwhelm and also having to do with like mindset blocks. And even recently, a lot of my clients felt like, Bree Noble and I were talking about our course Out to Launch last time we were on, right? Well, that's running now. A lot of our clients in there were recently struggling with this paralysis and moving forward, feeling like they can't find success, they can't reach their goals because of the aftermath of COVID. Like, they had lost so much and so much had been turned upside down. There was so much uncertainty. And so in those situations, we were able to pinpoint, like, where did this mindset start? Where did this feeling start? And go back and really work through the belief there, and acknowledge that it's okay to feel grief for what you lost. It's okay to feel resentment even, or whatever's coming up for the past year, but deciding how it is that you want to move forward, and also deciding what you need to support yourself through it. Because it's not just like, oh, I acknowledge this is happening, now I'll just turn it off. So for me, it's a combination of tools, talking things through, doing other exercises that I'll take my clients through to like work through mindset blocks and start to rewrite some of those stories there. But again, of course, if somebody is struggling with something deeper that requires medical support, basically, then it's really important as well that if you have a coach, that they're able to recognize that and recommend that when it's warranted. And if you're just realizing it in yourself, that you're able to get the support that you need to work through it.
Absolutely. And here's why I get so frustrated when the keyboard warriors come out and dump on a athlete, or in our case, an artist who speaks out about needing help, is when we can get out of these creators' way and allow them to share this with us, it does so much good. When I can only imagine when somebody like Simone Biles, the greatest of the great of her sport, can be authentic and be real and be honest about what she's going through. Think about the message that sends to all of the other gymnasts at all the other levels. If Simone Biles can go through this, it's okay for me to as well. When somebody like Kevin Love, the basketball player, speaks about having these sort of mental health issues, that gives a lot of other folks who are in basketball, often a very masculine, macho sport. They go, oh, if Kevin Love can express this, then maybe it's okay for me to as well. And when artists can come out and say the same thing, other artists feel like they have permission to get the help they need. So every time one of these highly visible athletes or creators can feel comfortable speaking out, it does so much good. So I get so frustrated when these people who have no idea what these people are going through and have the audacity to question their toughness or these creators' ability or just, devotion to their craft. It is just infuriating.
Also, like, why do you care? Like, she's the one who actively chose to not have the medals because she didn't care. Why do you care? It has nothing to do with you. Like, why do you care if she made that choice? And obviously people looking at it in a positive way can recognize, wow, she gave up what seems to be this really monumental thing. That's really inspiring because now I know that I might feel this pressure that I have to show up to work when I'm not feeling well or go through with this thing that I don't want to do. And I'm realizing, hey, maybe it's actually not that big of a deal and I can make choices that better serve me and I can take things off my plate or say no and whatnot. But like, to me, I'm like, I love that it happened with such a high stakes thing because it makes you realize that it's actually not high stakes at all and nothing matters. Like, literally nothing matters. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Like, am I wrong? Like, are you healthy? Are you happy? That's what matters. Do that. Make sure you focus on that. Otherwise, who cares if she has one more medal or not? Like, she doesn't, so why do you? That's my rant. Sorry, I'm getting off.
That's a good rant. We got our money's worth. That's fantastic. I knew when all of this happened. I was like, I got to talk to Katie because I know Katie's going to have some things to say. And she's going to be powerful and true. And we all just need to get out of Katie's way so she can lay down some truths for us. Fantastic. If you want to know more about just everything that Katie's about, go to katiezaccardi.com. You're going to find a lot of great resources there. She's got her podcast Out to Be. She also hosts another program. It's the Daily Music podcast.
I co-host sometimes.
Yeah. So she's everywhere and she's great. You're obviously doing some great stuff with Bree Noble as well that you spoke about. A lot for people to get excited about there. Check out katiezaccardi.com. All right. Here's what I think we're going to do. I think we're going to take an early break. Because I see Cheryl B. Engelhardt in the green room. I want to talk to her. I want you to meet her, Katie, because she's awesome. She helped us out with the telethon last year, and that was so much fun. She's got a new album out. She is a master of email marketing, and want her to share some truths there. I also happen to know she's a big Ted Lasso fan. So
I've heard a lot about that.
Have you seen that at all?
I love Jason Sudeikis, but I haven't seen it yet. I've heard a lot about it, so I really should watch it.
All right. So just so everyone knows, for the next half hour of the show, it's going to be Cheryl and me just trying to get you to watch Ted Lasso.
Perfect.
We're both
by
fans,
the way,
it's a great show.
And by the way, his sister was my morality teacher in high school. So there you go. Yeah. Can you believe that?
That is a connection right there. Wow.
So yeah, what is that? 3 degrees of separation. So I feel like I definitely have the pressure on me. I promise you I will watch it by next time I come on.
Yes. Next time you come on, you, me, Cheryl, we're all going to have just like a 60-minute Ted Lasso conversation. Don't go anywhere. Cheryl B. Engelhardt up next. Keep listening to Break the Business. Ryan Kairalla here. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you're getting a lot out of it. I do what I do because I care about creators like you. A lot. I've dedicated my career to helping creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and organizations move forward. I do it by hosting this program, and I'm also proud to do it in my legal practice. If you're a creative professional looking for solutions-oriented legal services to help you further your goals, I'd love to help. My firm RKPA does contracts, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Visit rkpalaw.com to learn more. That's rkpalaw.com. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back, everybody, to Break the Business on Twitch, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, all major podcast platforms, and Sirius XM Channel 145. Happy to have you wherever you might be watching or viewing our craziness. Let's go ahead and bring on our guest. She is a true friend of the podcast. Have had her on a bunch. Every time, Katie, I have enjoyed it. She is a New York City-based singer-songwriter, composer, and music career coach whose latest album, A Seeker's Slumber, is currently number 3 on the Amazon New Age charts, and it might even be higher than that now since I've mentioned it. We'll probably ask. You can find out more about her work by visiting www.cbemusic.com. We are so happy to have Cheryl B. Engelhardt on the program. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing so well. It is fantastic to see you again. How have you been?
I am good. I mean, you're catching me just after release week. So I went camping for 3 days and didn't have any Wi-Fi or reception, just kind of had to unplug because I was so on all the devices all the time for months leading up to that last week. So you caught me at a good time.
So after you release an album, you disappear, you unplug, you're not furiously checking the chatter about your album or seeing how your chart
I did. That was the
performance
whole week after it was released. And then I'm kind of all right, the charting day is over. Kind of got to take a minute here because we did, I always do a push for the release week. And because I have very specific goals along that line. I'm not saying that that's what every musician should do, but I play a charting game. So, it's all about sales and streams that first week. All the pre-orders count for that first day of sales for the first week. So it all makes sense to sort of go hard that first week. So afterwards, I wasn't actually booked this campsite without thinking about the actual date. I was oh, it's the week after the release. But then I was oh, it's too soon after. I was a little oh, what's happening? But I had enough ducks in the row and had gotten in touch with, I have a team now. So I was able to say, okay, I'm piecing out. Here's what you need to be looking out for. And so no, that's not normal. To answer.
You must be over the moon with how everything's been going with the release, though. Your album is number 3 on paid sales on the Amazon.
No, it's not. It was number 1 for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it still is number 1 in new release on Amazon. But the thing that I'm over, and that happened with my last New Age record too. But the thing that is a new milestone, and I'm not poo-pooing that because it's really extraordinary. My fans really show up, and I love that.
Well, it wasn't giving you justice.
Just Ryan, you're absolutely wrong. It was number 1. Get it right, please.
This is a gold medalist we're talking to. No bronze around here.
Exactly.
No bronze. No, but the new milestone that was really extraordinary was that it was number 5 on all genres. I was surrounded by Bo Burnham and Foo Fighters, on 4 and 6. So that was kind of blowing my mind a little. I've never been on that list, the like all genres list. I've always, done well on the new age charts in general, which is a much smaller genre also. So to see, like, when you log into Amazon and you click digital music, it was like you saw my album right there. Like, and I have like all the screenshots, and it was there for a day. It updates every hour. So the sales, this is all Amazon sales. And it was also number one on iTunes in the new age as well. But it was really cool to sort of see it on a much bigger scale. So that was very cool.
That is so cool. What got you into new age music? Because you were a pop singer songwriter. That's where you got your start. What got you into this new genre?
I had a lot of panic attacks, and I was like, let's fix that.
Well,
and I this is like the serious nutshell. I've literally talked on like dozens and dozens of like anxiety and mental health podcasts. I love listening to the two of you talk about just sort of like the importance of mental health and the conversations around it. But I literally was like, all right, I've had over a decade of like regular panic attacks. They were almost like monthly, unpredictable. For a really long time, I thought I had like a food allergy. Like, it was very physical. It's like food poisoning. So I went to doctors for several years, and like finally one doctor was like, what's going on in your life? And like actually introduced that word anxiety to me. So, I guess I started trying to find ways to kick it. And I'm sort of a scientist at heart. And so I was like, let's do some research. And I started learning about gratitude. And I'm that person that can walk into a room and see everything that's wrong. And if nothing is wrong, then I will break something so that there's something to fix. Like, I'm a fixer. And so gratitude was kind of like writing in a gratitude journal in the morning was kind of my way to kind of retrain my brain to look for the good instead of the bad. And that got me down a rabbit hole of learning about meditation, which I never thought I could do because you hear me talk, right? Like sitting still for 5 minutes, like what? No. And that, like, getting into the science behind meditation. And so I started a meditation practice, and I actually was like, I'm a big fan of like challenges. I'm very competitive. I think there is another life where I went out for the Olympics in some sport, who knows what. But I found this app that would like give you a badge every 30 days that you like did it straight. So I was like, game on. I want another badge. It's like literally the reason I just started working out with the Peloton app, because they like gold stars. I'm like Hermione, right? Like, I know the answer. But now I'm on day 1,159 straight of meditating. And so a couple years ago, I was like, yeah, let's figure out how to like enhance this process. And I started looking for music that can help with meditation and help focus. Cause I had a really hard time. Like, I would be sitting and it would be quiet, or I'd like be listening to meditation music that was like, whatever. And I'd go to my grocery list and my to-do list. And like, I know that that's okay now. Like, I know that that's fine. But I was like, looking for meditation music, and it was either that kind of music that would put me to sleep or be so subtle that it wouldn't keep me present, or if I listened to other music, like songs that had lyrics, like I would be taken into the music. My husband laughs and makes fun of me that I'm a musician that listens to no music ever, because if I'm focusing on a project, like I get so like I can't have music playing during the dinner, at the dinner table, because I just like my ear goes right to it. So basically last year, I was like, or 2 years ago, I got invited to a composer residency, and I said, let's try to make some music that can keep someone focused on their thoughts, but doesn't take them away from those thoughts and is not going to put them to sleep. And I sort of like played with like heart rates and interrupting silence. So there's like some bells, but there's all, so I did this kind of like an experimental project just with the grand piano in the studio and my voice. And I did a lot of post-production stuff as the composition, like messed around with like plucking piano strings and reversing the audio. And it was kind of this experimental process just because I was in this mountain town in the middle of Greece doing this composer residency. And that turned into an album that was the first time I ever saw anything like charts. Like, it was number one on the New Age chart for a while. And I was like, oh, and it got featured on all these meditation apps for like millions of people. And I was like, the one time I'm not actually like trying to go out there and like do something as an artist, it actually was making a difference. And so we got a lot of really, really good feedback. It released February last year, was Luminary. And it was the first time I worked with a publicist that I really felt like got me. And she was like, you need to do another one. Like, we have all these new connections. You are now a new age artist, and people are going to be like, who was that if you just disappear? And I submitted to get a Grammy nomination, and that didn't happen, but a lot of insider people were like, you were close. And I was like, I don't even know what that means, but okay. So I'm just sort of doing it again. And Seeker Slumber was my way to take some of the experimental process of what I did with Luminary. And also I wanted to collaborate a little bit more. And it was during a pandemic, so I was not in Greece. It was literally like the opposite of how I made the first record. But I brought in some lyrical things. So it's half of it's lyrical, half of it is designed to fall asleep. So the same idea of like latching onto a heart rate and sort of being busy so that your mind goes to the music, but then it slows down and sort of guides you to sleep. So half of the tracks do that, and the other half are sort of it's like a day in the life, like awakening tracks and then sort of resting tracks. And so yeah, that was the long answer of how did I get into New Age. It was a little bit of my own solution to my own anxiety that sort of had a bigger response than I thought, and I kind of went with it.
I dig the music. I mean,
much
as how, your music was sort of your first kind of exposure into New Age. Like, you got me into New Age music. I mean, it's never been a genre that I've thought I'd enjoy. And then when I found out my friend Cheryl B. Engelhardt made a New Age album, the first one you talked about, Luminary, I listened to it. I was like, this is really cool. It does help me kind of be present and focus. And it's a really delightful listening experience. And A Seeker Slumber does the same thing for me, which is cool. And one of the things I've noticed, Cheryl, in sort of how you've been either consciously or subconsciously discussing the rollout of this album, I've heard a lot of emphasis on sales, on purchases, on as opposed to streams and downloads. And we've had artists in the past come on, and we've on this podcast talked about how for an artist, a paid download of a track is, monetarily a lot more rewarding than a stream, which, by multiple of thousands.
Right.
And so have you sort of been conscious about trying to encourage purchases of your album as opposed to streaming of it?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. So the reason I've gone down a purchasing path was because right before Luminary came out in February 2020, up until January 2020, the Billboard charts for New Age and for several other categories was sales based only. And because most New Age artists like Enya and a lot of the like sleep music people are streaming on repeat overnight, and they're not really buying it. So it actually wasn't very hard to get on the Billboard chart. So I was like, this will be a cool thing. Like, I have this New Age album. Like, let's just see if we can get on the Billboard chart. 2 weeks before my record came out, they changed the model to be what they call consumption. So it was equal, instead of just sales, it became equal parts sales, radio plays, which is not a thing I experience in New Age very often, or know where to go for that, and streams. And I think I had like 15 followers on Spotify. Like in an indie artist like world, right? There's some things you just don't get to. And that had been the thing that I was like, I know I need to, but I had never promoted my Spotify or anything like that. So the rules changed 2 weeks before. It didn't get on the Billboard chart. But it was sort of an arbitrary goal just because I'm really big about having a very, very clear game goal, whatever you want to call it, milestone that you want to hit, so that when you are talking to your fans, it's not just like, hey, I have a new record out. And they're like, cool, what do you want me to do with that? Like, the worst thing in the world is for you to tell your fans some news and for them to be like, cool, what do you need me to do? And not have an answer. So I learned that early on. And that's one of the reasons why I'm such a big fan of email marketing, because you can get really, really clear over email and then supplement that on social media. I'm not saying that social media is not important, but that's the main place where people are really going to more likely get your message and also click on the links, whatever it is you're asking them to do. So I just decided to go for sales. For me, it was not a money thing per se. It was just like, I think that this might be achievable and this is new for me. So let's try it. And then the rules change. And this year I am throwing my hat in the sort of Grammy world again. And I thought, okay, if I could get on now I know much more, and I have, almost 50,000 Spotify monthly followers, like I did the work last year to kind of, okay, now I got to change the game a little. It's a kind of like, we're always shooting at moving targets as an indie artist, right? Like no one told me that was coming. I didn't have some record label, help me out and be like, hey, do this. But this year I was like, let's see if we can do it again with this much streaming and putting some push behind this. And if we can get on that, then cool. That's just getting in front of the Recording Academy voters. That might help the ultimate goal that I've had for 17 years, which is to get a Grammy nomination. So there's sort of this like big goal that you ask anyone on my email list, what does Cheryl want more than anything? Everyone knows. Like it's almost like a joke, but it's kind of the compass for me, like to keep creating music that's at a quality that's worthy of being nominated for a Grammy. Whether or not I get nominated, it's still helping. That's the compass for me from a quality control perspective. And then it's also, okay, what actions am I going to take? What goals and milestones do I want to sort of throw out there that are going to be aligned and help support that game? Again, obviously it matters. I would like to achieve that goal, but it's really about the other things along the way. And like, getting on the Amazon charts and the iTunes and being it was from an inside source, like the best selling new age album last week. Like if the Billboard chart was just selling, it would have been number 1 on the Billboard chart, but that is not the model, and by the way, you guys didn't get on the Billboard chart last week because as much as people streamed it and bought it and everything, apparently I was close enough to be on the Billboard radar. They contacted me to vet the record just in case I got on the chart, but I didn't make it. So, I got the close but no cigar email. But was there buzz? Were people psyched? Were people buying it on multiple platforms? Like who, first of all, buys a CD on and then buys it on 3 platforms like Amazon, iTunes, Bandcamp, all the places that were reporting to the charts. So it was just kind of a way to build buzz. I actually, because it wasn't about the money, I priced it low enough. So I priced it at like $4.44. There's a lot of like goddess witchy sort of divine number stuff. So I priced it at $4.44 where I could on Bandcamp, iTunes. I put in $4.44, but they made it $4.99, and so that people could buy it in multiple places and not feel like they were getting ripped off by buying a $10 album in 3 different places. Sure. So I was super clear that it was about the sales numbers, not the money, and that clarity sort of translated to the fans, and people showed up.
Man, that is so cool. And by the way, like we want the Grammy for you. Like this show is behind it. You would be our 3rd Break the Business guest to be a Grammy winner. And we've never so far the Grammy winners we've had on the show were both Best Children's Album. We need a new age person.
Who did you have Joni Leeds?
No, Tim Kubart was
okay.
And another one whose name escapes me, and that's going to bother me forever and ever.
No, that's okay. Joni Leeds won this year, and she is actually a featured artist on A Seeker Slumber.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
For some reason, like there's always connections of this podcast and Best Children's Album Grammy winners. I love it.
That's so interesting.
Very,
I love that.
Happy.
Well, I have some love for that genre in general. They've been through some stuff, and they're doing some good stuff over there. And I personally love Joni, and she introduced me to Hava Morel, who sang on her record. And Hava and Joni and I are all on one of the tracks called Mother Guy. It was actually I gave them like an 8-bar. This is for my music dorky people. I gave them like 8 bars of like really, really terrible MIDI chords and a couple like lyric stanzas. And I was like, do whatever you want. And they like improvised 8 bars, like looped 8 bars. And I took like pieces and like totally created the composition and like layered on top of them. And it was like a weird improvisatory, like pandemic virtual collaboration. It was really, really cool.
So you had mentioned email marketing earlier, and I want to ask you some email marketing questions because that really is like among the many things that you're quite knowledgeable about. That is way up there on the list. But there's so many things I know about you in terms of your background and just like funny stories. And I feel like we'd be just an injustice if I didn't probe those. We will get to email marketing. We have time. Don't worry, people. Did I read, Cheryl, that you were a bouncer in a past life? Do yes. I have this right? Okay.
You have this yep. For 3 years straight.
Now, for 3 years. Okay. I'm probably being unfair here and quite biased. And this is, my own, male chauvinist biases showing perhaps. But you don't give off bouncer vibes to me.
Then you do not know me quite well enough.
Okay, well, then in that case, can you give me like, I need to know like what Cheryl B. Engelhardt bouncer looks like. Can you give me your best bouncing story?
Wait, Cheryl, I have to ask first, what is your sun sign or your whole astrology chart? But I just feel like, are you an Aries?
I am Pisces.
You're a Pisces,
Close.
really? Because I feel like you have such fiery energy.
I am a Pisces. I've got some Gemini. I've got a, what's the other thing that I have? I literally was just looking at it yesterday and I'm like, I don't know what my moon rise. I don't know what they mean. I'm trying to get better at learning what they are, but I will have that for you in a second here.
It's extra funny that you're a Pisces sun though, because Pisces are so like known for being gentle and emotional. And then you're like a bouncer.
Yeah. The sun, my sun is Pisces, my moon is Gemini, and my Mercury is Pisces.
My moon is Gemini too.
I have no, what did you think I had? I have none of that.
What's your rising? Ryan's like gonna
is that ascendant?
Yes.
Scorpio.
Okay.
I'm looking at my chart on my
Katie, I'm trying to get to a story here of Cheryl B. Engelhardt tossing some person out of a bar and being like, and stay out. And I don't astrological here.
Now we can understand more about Cheryl and how she approaches life and also how she might show up as a bouncer. This is important stuff.
Katie has spoken. So the way this goes is I was at college. I went to Cornell. So it was in Ithaca. So it was a college town. There's a bar called Ruloff's, which my dad used to play in his Dixieland. He used to play upright bass and he went to Cornell and he used to play in that restaurant all the time. It was like a pub, whatever. And they hired me to be a cocktail waitress. And I did one night. This is my sophomore year. I did one night as a cocktail waitress. And I was like, what else you got? Because I was not like, no. I was just a pretty hard no to being a cocktail waitress and wearing a skirt and doing the whole thing with the drunken. Like, no.
Not for me.
And they're like, well, the guys are not supposed to, but they let in all the like underage girls. So maybe I was like, done, on it. And then Wednesdays and Saturdays for the next 3 years were my bouncing shifts. And I always had another bouncer with me. And the other guys would like hate bouncing with me because that was during, you guys, I'm old. That was during the time when you could still smoke inside. And I was on the crew team and like smoking was like I could not do it. So dead of February, middle of the winter in Ithaca, New York, I would be sitting outside on a bench bundled up. And anyone that was like on the schedule to bounce with me was like, oh, darn it, I got to work with Cheryl, which means I need to sit outside. And I was like,
In Ithaca.
Yeah.
Oof.
We didn't have many issues. There was one party where like I told a guy he couldn't come in and then he ended up sneaking in the back and I saw him. And so I was like, I see you. You can leave on your own or I could go get my friend. And I ended up having to go get my friend that I worked with. But I never I didn't have to get physical. You just need to be able to read IDs and read when the little girls are like the best thing for anyone that ever wants to be bouncer. If you are not sure if their ID is fake or not, just ask them their sign and see how long they wait. That question. It's so funny that you asked me what's your sign, because that was like my number one trick.
Full circle, baby.
What's your sign? People would be like, they would answer the way I just did. You asked me what is my.
It's like a Virgo, Libra,
my moon was
or
something. They're like,
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Wow. And Cheryl, I know you've also been getting into Ted Lasso, which makes me so happy because this show has saved my pandemic for me. It has been my comfort food throughout this pandemic. It's so wonderful. Katie has not seen the show yet, despite purporting to be a Jason Sudeikis fan. Tell Katie why she needs to be watching the show.
Because it's watching a male represent the male race in his journey to understanding the big feelings he has and expressing them. And it's like all I want for men. And it's like, but it's also really sweet, and you fall in love with all the characters, and even there's like some it's just that, but that is why I love it. And it's totally like, it's up there. When Schitt's Creek was over, when I finished watching that, it's like when The Office was over, you're kind of like, what's my next like short show that's going to do something good for like raise my vibrations somehow. And
there's only one season, right?
The second season just came out, and new episodes come out every Friday.
Oh, okay.
I think episode 3 of season 2 comes out this Friday. Katie, you have it right. And Cheryl, you have it right. And I appreciate your perspective on that, Cheryl, because I've noticed that Ted Lasso has a lot of female fans. I mean, just from what I've seen on TikTok and Twitter, like most of the people who are chatting about this show are women. And, despite the fact that it's a mostly male cast, and it sounds like from what I'm hearing from you is part of what might be drawing women to this show is it's sort of the
wishful
platonic
thinking.
Ideal. What's that?
Wishful thinking.
Right. It's this platonic idea of what men at their best should be in terms of mental health and self-awareness. And
well, he's working on it. Like he's not like my husband loves the show too. I think they're characters that are very relatable, and they have their nice little story arcs. And then there's the quiet guy, and he's just like, I'm good with being quiet. But he's like Ted Lasso's like trying to figure something out. And I so appreciate the struggle for that awareness, even though there might be some resistance to it when it does show up. I mean, it's so great.
It's a lovely, lovely production. Yeah. Katie, your homework, you got to check this show out. You can binge the first season probably in a day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like 10 half-hour sessions. Like sessions.
We're gonna have you on to talk about it, Katie, because it's gonna hit all the marks for you. I'm sure of it.
I am sure too. My brother watched it and he said that it was awesome. So I will do the binge watching. I will report back, and we'll talk about it next time.
Fabulous. To email marketing now. I have to talk about this with you because this is your world. You're so great at it. And last week on the show, Cheryl, we had, his name is escaping me. Who was our guest last week? It was, wow, my brain just, Chris Gethard. There we go. Chris Gethard, the comedian, was on the show last week. He's a really prominent comedian. I don't know what happened there, but he was on the show last week, and one of the things that he was talking about was this really impressive, powerful rant about how with all these big platforms that are coming out, your Facebooks, your Twitters, people don't own their audiences anymore. You're renting your audience from these platforms, and you don't have anything that's really yours. And the whole time he was saying that, I was thinking of what you always say, Cheryl, about email marketing and what makes it valuable because it allows you to keep your fans. Can you talk a little bit about just that general idea?
Yeah. And I think, there are a couple sides to that coin, which is like, you don't want to have happen what happened in MySpace. Like when Facebook just disappears, you can't get in contact with anyone, which yes, it's possible, but honestly, that's not even like the big reason. That's one of many reasons to really be engaged with an email list of subscribers. To me, first of all, there's so much data that shows that people are like 138% more likely to buy from one email than from however many times you're going to post about whatever you're trying to sell on social media. So whether that's your music or new merch or ticket sales for something, like you're just going to be that much more effective on email. That's first and foremost to me. The second thing is really, and honestly, the second thing leads into the first, is you're able to connect with them in a more personal way over email. When you're scrolling through social media, everyone knows that you're posting for the public, for everyone. And that's totally fine. But there's this sort of like understanding, knowing that you're not connecting one-to-one. When you get an email from someone, and even if they know it's a mass email, there are now ways to, put someone's first name in. It's called a merge tag. You're able to make those emails personal. And one of the things I tell everyone in my email program is like, don't write like, hey guys, so great that you all showed up to my show. Like you want to be writing as if you are writing to one person, and really get personal and share and open up. It's it takes something to say, this is what I want for this album. It took me like 2 weeks to hit send on that first email where I was like, I think I want to be on the Billboard chart. Here's what I need from you. Like that's scary to put yourself out there, because then it's like, what if I don't get it? Well, I feel stupid, but that's part of that connection, and people are drawn to that, and they see themselves in that vulnerability. And it's really hard to do that on social media. it's really hard because social media right now is very visual. Instagram, even Facebook, like is favoring videos and photos and things like that. So the captions are going to be really important. But again, in email, it's sort of the opposite. It's the text, and then you can have images and videos and things to support the text. And I say, it's really great to change up. You don't want to always have like an essay. You don't want people to scroll and scroll. Sometimes it's great to be like, hey, I made a video for you, and send them to a Loom link where you can, make a quick personal message over video. Like changing it up is great too. But the whole point is that you're going to be able to create a relationship with people, let them become fans, because people sign up for your mailing list. You don't want to assume that they're fans. They're subscribers with the potential to be a fan, depending on how well you write and send emails. Like it's your job via your emails to turn that subscriber into a fan, and then turn them into super fans. And super fans are the people that buy stuff, whether it's a 99-cent song or they pay $1,000 for a fan funding campaign. But either way, they're going on a journey, and it's your job to take them along that journey. And that's something very unique to email that it's hard to do on social media for a lot of reasons. One of them is just timing. Like people will get to your email. There's no guarantee that they'll see if you post and they don't see it. Like, are they scrolling back 7 hours? Like, I don't know. I don't scroll back 7 hours. So folks, there are a lot of reasons to answer the question. I don't even remember what your question was.
No, you got there. That was fantastic. Okay. And folks, Cheryl's got a lot of great resources on getting great at your email marketing. I encourage you, while you're checking out her music, which is also really fantastic, her new album, A Seeker's Slumber, definitely worth a listen. But you can just check out her resources more generally at cbemusic.com. There's a lot to like. Cheryl, before we let you go, one last question. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Yeah, two things that are sort of connected. One is that if you're creating music for other people to hear, you are in a people business. So the whole doing it by yourself, like I understand being on a budget and trying to do all the things from your website to mixing your music. Like I'm a fan of jack of all trades, master of all trades. But there are areas where you can get support and get other people in your life to get good at communicating with people. I think this business is way more about communication than anyone gives it credit for, which is why communication is sort of my shtick, and it shows up in email, right? So to that end, I would say get yourself in a community. I have one, it's called Amplify, and it's a monthly, like there's content, there's amazing leveling up conversations going on. We share wins and goals, which is a huge part of turning small wins into momentum for bigger wins. And if you don't have that, I think that's one of the most valuable things that I've seen in my career, is being surrounded by other people that are like-minded, and not, those people at the Thanksgiving that are like, when are you going to start making money? Like if that's what's in our life, like there's not a lot of room to expand and grow. So I would say acknowledge that you're in a people business is one. And two, if you're not already, get yourself in a community that's not a Facebook group, that's a forum, but like a real time, like Zoom call, whatever, like real people interaction to get that kind of energy and those ideas, and for you to be able to sort of practice what it takes to be a fantastic communicator, so that you can do that for your fans.
I love that. Cheryl, always a treat to talk to you. Thank you for helping us with the telethon, which seems like 1,000 years ago, but wasn't actually that long ago, but the pandemic screwing everything up. And just thank you for always just being a friend of the podcast. We learn so much from you every time you're here.
Well, thank you for having me so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh my goodness. Cheryl B. Engelhardt, everybody. I'm in a good mood. I like talking to her so much. I'm so glad that I got to allow you to meet her, Katie. Just two awesome people that I know are going to hit it off, and y'all had a really great astrology conversation there. So
yeah, sorry to hijack the conversation, but I'm like, I just have to know this information. No, Cheryl's awesome, and obviously you could tell her energy is amazing. I'm like, I got to know about this. I had an astrologer on my podcast today, so it's on the brain. But it is fascinating when you learn more about it. It can tell you a lot about yourself.
I'm a Virgo. I don't know if that.
I'm a Virgo rising, so I feel you.
What does that mean?
Well, I don't think we really have time to explain all of astrology right now.
You have 40 seconds to tell me what a Virgo rising is. No.
It doesn't
my thanks
matter.
To Cheryl B.
It's in my
Engelhardt.
chart.
my thanks to you, Katie, for joining us. I'm going to be on vacation for the next 2 weeks, but the show will be in really great hands with some fantastic hosts. I know y'all are going to love it. Thank you all so much for checking out Break the Business. We will see you next week.